So first, I'd have to compliment everyone. I know the two groups that I talked to be able to identify or take the problem, break it down into components, try to come up with a solution in the limited time that you had in this afternoon was impressive, and to be able to come up with all the information you have. So kudos to you for that effort. A couple of things I'll notice when communicating with the groups that I was able to participate in is the fact of identifying upfront needs assessment. I cannot tell you, at least from the work that I do, how important that is. Sometimes you have a perception of what a need may be, but when you talk to the users, or you talk to the folks that work with the users, the managers, or even those stakeholders that have a different perspective who may not be in the day-to-day operations, the importance of understanding what each of those find as a problem, or also what they think solutions, that's incredibly helpful. The second thing I'll compliment the groups as well was the incorporation of stakeholders. And those stakeholders are the users themselves, those who manage, as well as those who are impacted either directly or indirectly by the efforts that you're doing. So having those be a seat at the table in the brainstorming process is incredibly valuable. I'll start with that. I'll pass down. I have a couple other specifics about different groups, but I'll share. Those are opening comments, I guess.
Yeah, so first of all, I echo Michael's comment. I think this is a wonderful sort of action learning, problem solving approach. And I was especially impressed with the presentations that opened with a compelling problem statement, just very clear, very specific in terms of what the problem is, and then sort of building the case from there. I've sort of reformulated these as positive, in positive formulations. So I loved hearing groups that had moved away from top-down prescriptive approaches. We're going to tell you what you need to do, what you need to develop, toward consensus building, partnership brokering, sort of measured diagnosis and feedback loops. That was all very good to hear. Also, when groups moved away from assuming that they were starting with a blank slate, recognizing that if people were not continuously learning already, the existing programs would not be working at all. Yes, and so thinking about anytime I heard of, say, the per diem beneficiaries or the mid-level managers, when there was concern and interest expressed for their perspective, their experience, and how that might factor in, I thought that was also very compelling. Yes, some of what I heard when it moved from sort of that keep it simple approach away from process-heavy, complex sequences with many moving parts. The temptation is to sort of incrementally add more and more blended learning, more measurement tools and methods, and we know how quickly that becomes unrealistic and unmanageable. And then just one final point. On the incentives and motivation, just recognizing that not everyone loves to learn. Yes, we're obviously the converted, but that mix of incentives, I heard sort of some creative ideas about mixing intrinsic motivation with the lower level, crasser motivations, but that are important to address. The need for certification, for reward, for recognition, for relief from the stress of day-to-day work, with the idea that ultimately it's leadership for learning that's the key driver. So those people who do have that intrinsic motivation might be more important than others. So I recognize many aspects of that in the project presentations, and came away really impressed.
Jill Mill.
So I echo what the other speakers have said. One thing that I wanted to mention was, as we all face in the field, is prioritization. So it's great right now when we started out with the brainstorming on different activities and having an idealistic kind of list of activities. But then, of course, the challenge would be to prioritize with the limited resources, both in terms of time and money that we all face at the field level, especially for training. And the other thing that I guess would want to hear more tomorrow is what is so new and different? Just to reflect back on, so are we saying the things that we have been doing for some time, or that we also know don't really work that well? So what is so new and different in the approach and the concept that we are proposing, and are we convinced that that's worth trying, you know? But we're all gathered here not to do something that we've done in the past, and some of those things we know didn't work. And so also the challenge to really think of in each of these activities what is new and different that could bring about change.
Okay. So I have just a few general comments, and I would like to comment on the composition of the team or the group. I think this is the first time most of them have come together and working as a team on a common objective, and come with a different background. Some are public health experts, some are immunization experts, others have broader training expertise. So them coming together and working on a common task, I think it took some time for them to understand each other's role in the team. It was a good dynamic for me to see that they were not coming to the point, and at some point I was thinking, I said, I should let them focus more onto the task at hand rather than discussion of broader things. But in the sort of 45 minutes or so, they came together and then they were very synergistic and then started nailing down on the task at hand. That was very good to see that ultimately with this diverse expertise available on the team, the quality of product which will come out will be really high. So that was very good to see. I think for me it was very minimum steering for them to be on the task for the objectives and other things. But I think going forward, they have all come together, and I think from this onward, for finishing up this into a nice product, I think it'll be really good. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, diverse group, I agree. And another one really is the diversity and complexity of the topic. Like when I joined the pre-service discussion, I just realized it's a very, very complicated issue, very complicated topic. And then going to incentivizing learnings, I think it's also about an issue that is well debated and well discussed. And if you have that one and you have a consensus of ideas immediately, I think you can immediately do a problem statement and then do some concept on how to really address or solve the issue. So that's how I see the discussion this morning, the complexity of the problem. And another one is on the topic itself. We said that training should be linked to performance. And the topic is new vaccine introduction for training, for example, where we say that maybe we need to really now stop using the word training, but training or learning for performance maybe, because we said that training is one time, it's seen as not continuous, it's not a process, and it's good that some groups are really discussing this one. What's the change on really having a system, continuity, integration, and the conditions that should be met in order to have change. And my other observation is the relationship between the very well analyzed problem, really the why. It can lead to a better formulation of higher level objectives or indirect or direct objectives. So again, zooming in, what's really practical, what's really doable, what's the solution, and really clarifying what's before, what's the current situation now, and how do we change it after. I think tomorrow we will improve on this one, because we really need to improve the formulation of the objectives on how do we solve problems. So I think that's my comment.
Thank you. So I think there's some very helpful commentary there, and obviously a lot which you saw that you liked a lot. And two comments are very helpful around, are we thinking radically enough, if I'm interpreting that correctly? Another comment which is very interesting is, in some ways, are we getting to the root causes of some of our performance issues in immunization training? If I was to press the panel, can you give other examples of things that you thought were missing or not sharp enough? Because at this early stage, it's quite important to get our concepts right. Michael? Pass the microphone. Yeah.
I did hear a lot of good ideas about peer-to-peer learning or supervising and doing those things to help pull through learning. I would caution the idea, and again, my experience only, but would recommend to the group, creating standards or what does good supportive supervision look like. If I were to ask all of you to go out and do supportive supervision, I may have 75 different models of what good looks like. If we're going to train in that perspective and be consistent, because consistency is one of the things, especially in the cascade model we're talking about, then defining those and maybe even training regarding that, so that there is consistency across. If a facilitator handbook is drafted, then yes, you hope that that can be consistently implemented across. But supportive supervision, those soft skills, it's important to kind of level set what good is and ensure that that is being consistent. So something to think about both in the peer aspect as well as the supportive supervision. So as an example, I heard that as a solution, something to share about as enacting that.
There's the old Jack Welch quote, so CEO of General Electric, who made the point about if the rate of external change to an organization is faster than the rate of internal change, that organization is basically dead in the water. And I did get the sense that in at least a couple of ways, there's it felt like we're in a constant state, even though there are obviously pretty rapid changes happening. One of the places where I heard that clearly expressed was about the internet access issue. So it's a reality that there's a limitation to how far you can get away from a capital and get reliable access. But I think one key thing to consider in thinking about training approaches is how quickly that is changing and how quickly access is expanding and what that means for the future of learning initiatives. And then the other thing I spotted was around how we think about innovation and evidence, because in some cases, of course, there's a temptation to say, well, we'd like to have really strong evidence in order to support and sort of advocate for learning initiative. But if it's a new way of doing something new, there's not going to be any evidence for it, which means that there's a whole question of aversion to risk and how we change that culture in which we operate to sort of accept and tolerate failure and recognize that failure can be good. And I saw that those were two sort of patterns that I spotted in a number of the processes, the discussion in the two groups I observed.
Well, I was thinking that we did a good assessment, most of the groups did a good assessment of the problems with the current situation, but I guess maybe we need to do a little bit of analysis of the opportunities. So this, so like I mentioned, that countries get the vaccine introduction grant, and that a big portion of it goes into training on the new vaccine, but that's an opportunity to strengthen routine immunization, some of the concepts that health workers have forgotten or need to be refreshed on, so that's an opportunity as well. Also an opportunity to try out new innovative things with the HSS grants. So I guess we also need to sort of not just look at the problems, but also look at, now that there are more stakeholders involved, more partners who want to contribute in a positive way at the country level, how can we use these opportunities to better the environment?
Only one point to make, that the groups have really come out with a very good list of activities to sort of achieve their objectives. But I've yet to hear clearly about the feasibility of them being implemented in a pragmatic way. So if there is a chance to clarify those as we go forward, that what is the feasibility of them being implemented very well, because they may be very aspirational, but can they be really implemented? So that would be good to see that details.
I would like to know really the motivation aspect, because every country, every location, every context, circumstance in a village, for a health worker to really perform well, the motivations are very different. Some are easily motivated by, yes, money, especially in a context where salaries, remuneration is very low. And there are also occasions like, if you look at travel, like face-to-face discussion, workshop, having those pre-workshop learning, and then motivated to go to a destination or location where a health worker would want to, like a big city, for example. So I think we need to learn from that one. Some are just maybe motivated to really have one-step promotion, something like that. So, or maybe just a pat in the shoulder by a supervisor. So all those simple things, or maybe complicated things, I think it really varies from one location and the culture of a certain location. So I think we need to understand more on that.
If not, hopefully that's good food for thought while you're eating real food this evening. But I think we've got a good platform for tomorrow's sessions about measurement, and then also sustainability and resourcing. So in which case, we'll let our review panel go, and thanks to them. I think it also deserves a round of applause.